Volcanoes. Unpredictable, angry, and dangerous. The first one went off in Hawaii, and it hit them hard. There was ash and smoke everywhere, and people running, trying desperately to save themselves, to save their loved ones. Not many were successful. The lucky few all rushed onto boats and came back to the mainland where they thought they would be safe, but little did they know, no one is safe. Very soon after that, the next one hit Indonesia and had the same devastating effects. Volcanoes all over the world started erupting. They would go off one place and people would evacuate, and then they would just erupt somewhere else. Wherever people would run to, it didn't matter. No one was safe. Nowhere was safe. People everywhere were saying it was the end of the world, but what if the world wasn't ready to end? Next thing we knew, the earth was covered in a thin cloud of smoke. No matter where you looked, it was everywhere. All you heard was this terrible static noise as the radio let out another warning. Stay indoors! Stay indoors! It just kept going on and on. The static pierced through my head like a needle, but my parents wouldn't let me turn it off. It just keeps repeating the same thing over and over. Can we please turn it off? No! My mother cut me off. What if there's some type of breaking news? We can't miss that. I stumbled into the other room and collapsed onto the couch. The springs screeched as if they were unused to bearing weight. Being trapped indoors with my family was probably the worst thing that could have happened. We got along like cats and dogs, especially my little brother. The little terror was running around the house trying to eat everything in sight. Finally, my father had to step in. I heard him shout from the other room, "You're 10 years old, start acting like it." I groaned and covered my head with the dusty old pillow that I found resting on the arm of the couch. The dust caused me to start coughing and hacking my lungs out. When I got up to go get a bottle of water, my mother warned me, for what felt like the 1,000th time, "Only a little, we have to make it last as long as possible." "I know, Mom," I grunted with a roll of my eyes as I took a sip of water. After that, I decided to head to bed early because I couldn't handle it anymore, and I was out as soon as my head hit the pillow. At first it wasn't that bad, but it kept getting colder and colder. It had been 6 days since the volcanoes erupted, and I had expected the smoke to go away. We all did. Instead, the smoke piled higher and higher on top of itself until it was so thick you could cut it with a knife. We were doing everything we could to keep warm. We had gotten out all of our blankets. "I'm still freezing," I stammered as I popped my head out from underneath the mountain of blankets I was already covered with. "I'm sorry, honey, that was the last one," my mother said in a low voice. "When will the smoke go away? When will it get warm?" I asked impatiently. "I don't know. Everyone expected it to go away a couple days ago," my dad said. All that followed that was a painful silence. Not painful in a normal sense, but painful in a sense where we all for the first time realized what was really happening. That if the smoke didn't clear away soon, we would all freeze. We had all migrated to the lowest part of the house because my dad said it was closer to the Earth's core or something like that. I was too cold to pay attention, or walk for that matter. I practically crawled down the stairs like a baby. I felt ridiculous, but at that point, I didn't even care. I couldn't muster up the strength to get up, so I didn't. Once we were all down there, we huddled together in a corner trying to stay warm. I was shaking so bad, but I couldn't stop it. Then I started crying. The tears froze as they flowed down my cheeks. I quickly wiped them off before anyone else saw, or before they froze my eyes closed. The last thing I remember was my brother snoring. I wanted to move, but the closer I was to him, the warmer I was, so I stayed put and started to doze off into sleep. I heard a loud rumble and my head sprung back up to its original position as if I hadn't just been lulled to sleep by my brother's annoying snores. The rumble was soon followed by a crackle that reminded me of the time my brother had tried to climb a tree. He had broken a tree branch and fell out of the tree, flailing his arms the whole way down in an attempt to catch himself, which he didn't. I was sucked out of the memory with another loud rumble. This one caused the house above us to shake. As it did, little pieces of dust glided down from the house, spinning and floating the entire way down. They reminded me of a ballerina as they landed on our heads. Just then I remembered these familiar sounds. It was thunder and lightning. I suddenly was rejuvenated with the strength I needed to stand up as I practically flew over to my parents. But then the strength disintegrated as I flopped down on top of them with a grunt. I shook them awake, wondering how the thunder didn't do it for me. When they finally woke up, they had a panic in their eyes. "What's wrong? Who's hurt? What happened?" My mother almost screamed. No, it's not that. Listen, I said, trying to calm her down. The thunder and lightning struck again, and my parents looked at me. My eyes were wide and full of hope, something I hadn't felt in well over a week. The storm, it could blow away the smoke, right? I asked, practically bouncing off the ground. It's possible, my dad said. Well, just hope for the best. He didn't sound hopeful. He said to be hopeful, and he wasn't, and just like that my hope fluttered away like a butterfly. I got a sharp pain coming at me from all sides. Then I realized I was cold. Sometime during that adventure, I had lost my blankets, and I didn't even notice. I picked up my blankets and crawled back over to my brother and closed my eyes. I tried to drown out the crackling and rumbling and tried to go to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a bitter silence. But that's not all. I also felt something. I couldn't put my finger on it until suddenly it hit me. Warm. Warm. For the first time in a long time, I felt warm. I shed my blankets and ran up the stairs so fast I can't remember touching a single one. When I finally got up there, I saw something peeking out from behind the curtain. It was the sun. I flung open the curtains and collapsed onto my knees, putting my hands to my face to catch my tears. An even warmer sensation rushed over me, and I realized that it was hope. I had been right, and I didn't even believe myself. My parents rushed upstairs, they'd probably heard me fall, and ran over to join me on the ground. We sat there for what felt like an eternity, but I didn't mind. We did it. We survived, and we're safe. The thought just sat on top of my head, unable to sink in. Safe. We were safe.